How's it going, CNN fans? Anthony back with episode 5. For all you people that have been waiting for it, it's out now. And this episode is going to be called Marquee. The reason for that is because after I was going from hospital to hospital after I woke up, I went through dialysis, I went through blood transfusions, I went through pneumonia, different situations that were coming across like that. But then after all those situations, finally they transferred me into this rehab called Marquee. When I was at that rehab, I was still bedbound. I had a broken left hip. I also was not really moving my right arm. I wasn't moving no part of my body. I was lucky and blessed that my sister was always there. She was always literally showing up around like 8 in the morning. She would stay with me the whole day to like 8 at night, and then she would leave, go home, get some rest, and then she would come right back the next day. And that's why I say that family support is the most important thing that you could have when you're in tough situations. Again, I did put up some scriptures over here to the right. You can take a look at them, and that's because I want everybody to see how these scriptures match up with my situation that I was in this time. When I went to this rehab, I still remember really deeply about what happened. The reason being is because of the pain. You know, it was a lot of pain that I can't just forget. I remember they started coming in within, it was about a month and a half. They started coming in and they go, okay, so you ready? We're gonna try to get you up. And my sister got excited. I did it because, like I say, I had a broken hip, you know, and they came in and they're like, we're gonna end up putting this sling on you. And I looked at it and it was a blue sling. It looked like a fishnet. And I was just like, okay. And they're like, what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll you onto your right side. We're gonna put the sling under you. Then we're gonna roll you back over and we're gonna pop it out to the other side. And we're gonna have it, you know, all fully under you so we could strap it to the top of the Hoyer lift. For anybody that knows what a Hoyer lift is, there is a picture over here to the left. So you could go ahead, kind of imagine what it is. But it gets up disabled people that can't move, because what it does is it's like a little hammock. So it lifts you up and they wheel you to wherever you are, and then they release it and put you on the wheelchair. Well, that's what their intention was to do with me. And they started lifting it up, and once they started lifting it up, I was like, I'm like, trying to breathe deeply, trying to really take the pain and endorse it, because it was, I'm telling you, it shot up to like a 20. There was no, 10 is the most pain I felt. No, it went to 20. And it was so much pain that they got me pretty much a quarter way up, and just seeing my face, my reaction, and the pain that I was in, they're like, okay, and they put me back down, and they're like, we're gonna go ahead and try it next week. They're like, because your blood pressure is rising too high, and it's really painful. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, okay, we'll try to get next week. So at that point I was like, oh, thank God, you know. And again, next week did come by. At that point, that's when I wasn't too excited. I was like, man, here we go again. And they came in, they're like, you ready? You know, they come all excited, and I'm like, yeah. And they go ahead, they come in, they do the same thing, you know. And the thing is that every time they tell me, or they would tell me that we're gonna roll you to one side, or we're gonna do this, or transfer you like this, transfer you like that, you know, and going from different hospitals and different stretchers and different beds, I hated it. You know, the main reason that I hated it was because of that broken hip. It was pain. It was pain all over again. Every single time it was like brand new pain over. And the thing is that it's crazy, because I adapted this routine where when they started lifting me up on that Hoyer lift, Once they had the machine, luckily they had a mechanical machine, because if it was manual, which later on it became manual, but let me get to that part. So they would raise me up, lift me, and at this point it was so painful that I would close my eyes and I would just start praying. And I'll say, Our Father, Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I would literally pray throughout the whole little wheeling and everything they did. And then finally they would release, and then boom, and land me on the chair. At that point I'd be like, oh man, like everything went relaxed, everything felt better, and I'm like, man, good thing it's done, because it was a lot of pain. And just note that they had to get me up like this for showers. They had to get me up like this every single day to put me back into bed, get me out of bed. And this was pain that I had to keep experiencing over and over and over again. And one thing about my sister was, she goes, are you gonna get up today? And I'm like, I don't want to. And she's like, I know, but you have to. She's all like, you have to start getting used to being on the wheelchair. You got to start getting out there and bonding with other people, so you could get to know other people, so you could do different things, so you could have different experiences. So she kind of motivated me and pushed me to have to do it for myself. And knowing it was painful, knowing the pain that I had to go through, I would always be like, okay. And she would literally, I'm not gonna lie, the whole time in rehab, I was probably in there 5 months. And the whole time, I probably remember taking 2 rest days. Just 2 days where I was fully bedbound and not having to do nothing. Just relax on my bed and not have to do that, But every single time I had to do it over and over and over again, go through this pain again and again and again. And I remember still that she would be the person I would go to when a new improvement came into play. So I would literally be laying there and, I would try, don't get me wrong, I would try. I wouldn't just sit there and do nothing. I would still be moving my hand, this was as high as I could go. And I'd go like this, and I'm like, and I would try, but I couldn't reach my face. And I would tell her like, oh, hey, can you scratch my face? And she's like, oh my gosh. And she would go like that, there? I'm like, no, by my nose. And she's like, oh my gosh. And she'll get annoyed, but she'll do it. And she'll go like, there? And I'm like, it was close. And I'm trying to scratch it with myself. And she just goes, man, right there? I'm like, yeah, you got it. And she's like, man. And she would get annoyed, but she was there and, literally scratching me because I couldn't reach my face. I couldn't even eat. I had to be fed, And I remember there was a point where slowly I got to this point, and I was like, oh man, at that point I felt like such a blessing, because I'm like, I could scratch my own face now. I could do my own things on my face. I'm like, so much better. But just going up to here was not enough. I still wanted more, Like now the mobilization is so much better. And that's with stretching, that's with doing different things throughout the time, and working out. And over time has gotten way better, thank God. The right hand, I still remember at one point at that hospital, I was laying down and literally this was what I did. And when I started doing that, I was like, whoa. I was like, Natalie, check this out. And she's like, what happened? I'm like, I'm moving it. I can move it. And she's like, oh, awesome. And she would get excited, it was like a little step of a graduation every single little time. And that's because it was a different improvement. And I felt good. Later on, I got to the point where my knee was able to just like that, lift it. It wasn't a march. It was more like lifting it from the bed like that, And just that, I was like, cool. And when I showed her, she's just like, awesome. And the thing is, it was exciting because I was able to move these body parts that I wasn't able to move to start, So it's pretty amazing, and it was a good improvement. And in all these situations, I was getting better, and they would start, after they would put me on the wheelchair, they would wheel me to therapy. They would have me do the bike about like 15 minutes. They would have me do the standing frame. The standing frame, that there's another picture right here so you can know what it is. But the standing frame, it's also a picture of me when I was on the standing frame. The standing frame would stand me up, and that felt amazing. The very first time they strapped me onto that and they got me up, I was able to stand for about like 7 minutes, and I felt happy. It felt good. It felt like I was getting back to where I was, but I knew I was still way, way, way far from my goals. And then when they stood me up again, I remember I accomplished about like 15 minutes. And at that point, that's when I was like, man, I've gotten better. And that was with the little workouts I was able to do as far as moving my knee, moving my arm. And that's nothing compared to what I should have been doing. You know, I also remember at one point, they would sit me down on this bench and they would give me a ball, or they would put little cones and they're like, okay, put one cone to the other side, you know. So I had to grab the little cone, put it to the other side. I had to literally put them all and then transfer them back and work on my abs like that. And at one point with the ball, this is why I know it's a lot of core that ends up adding up into walking. And that's because when they gave me that ball, they're like, move it from side to side. A lot of people know that workout. There's a picture right there too, so you can have a little gist of it. But that workout, when I tried the very first time, it was like one, and I fell over. And they're like, go ahead, try it again. So they put me back in the middle. And they're like, okay, go ahead, try it again, and try not to fall this time. I'm like, okay. So I go like this, and I fell to the right side. And they're like, this is something you gotta work on so that your core could engage, so you could get it stronger, so you could actually have more strength when you stand up. That core kicks in. And all these situations, they were mandatory because they would lead up to me being able to stand and walk. I'm gonna go ahead and stop right there, continue the next part 2 next week. But you guys are getting more of a gist of what happened in this rehab. This rehab was a lot of my recuperation, and it was a big step that I needed to go through to get to where I'm at today. But stay up with the videos, like, comment, and remember to subscribe. All right. God bless everybody. And Anthony out. God bless.